Good evening. Again, we already had one session for the stream of the festival. I'd like to welcome at Hlava Online Film Festival Edward Kihn, the author of Terrain Vague. Hello, Edward.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Sorry. Yeah. Fine, how are you?
Good.
We already had a conversation for the festival stream, but now we come back to discuss Terrain Vague, a film which was premiered, if I'm right, at Open Bonus, Opus Bonum section of the festival, which I actually wonder whether I should call it a film, because it's actually not a movie. It's not a moving image, even though you can see some glimpses of moving image. But it's rather a series of it's a diary of transformation of a space of one neighborhood in Philadelphia, which changes from kind of desolate place into a brand new innovation center, technology innovation center, and it's been recorded in analog photographs. So that's why I wouldn't call it, or I hesitate to call it a film. But these photographs are being photographed on Pentax SLR. Is that right? I got a note.
Yeah, I think the actual camera. Yes, it is a Pentax. Yeah, some things were
somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it brings a special feeling about this place, because it's analog. I mean, the way of processing the reality is analog, and also the situations and moments are a little bit like from the last century. I mean, you can see the remains of the industrial buildings. We can see the agent, who basically looks like a guy from 1970s, or without any time figures. So I was wondering, I have a few questions related to your piece. First of all, we have this diary which explains in detail how the place, how this quarter changes, and it's read by a woman. So there is a narrator, right, who is, as I read, is like a fictional narrator, researcher, who is kind of exploring this this neighborhood and the situation, and kind of meeting the person. So why do you have a woman narrator in the piece?
Right, good question. A few reasons. I think the main one is right, because there's this agent character, right? And every time I use the word character, I'll put scare quotes around them, because they're kind of loose amalgamations of features. But basically, I wanted someone to act as a foil to this kind of blustery, slightly macho, perhaps, real estate developer who is kind of, helping this private university take over this small but increasingly enlarged area of Grace Ferry, right? So they're starting to build this innovation center, but there's other gentrification happening around it and because of it and related to it. So I thought, this kind of, maybe slightly typical and maybe slightly cartoonish kind of agent character, who is not a real person, would have, someone to contrast with them, right? This forces of development, these sort of macho, masculine in some ways, in bad ways, kind of forces of development, would have this foil in this sort of ruminative, meditative female narrator. So that was sort of the main reason. Also, it's only slightly autobiographical in the sense that I'm from the city and I've seen this place transform, and I didn't want it to be about me, and I wanted to, kind of cancel myself out, my subjectivity in a sense, by making this person, in some ways not what I am, which is, a woman. But so those are sort of big reasons. Also, the person who does the voiceover, there's just the fact that I quite like her voice, and I felt like it kind of helped. It is a little monotone, as the description says, but I think she has a kind of sonorous, mellifluous quality. And actually, Keisha is a film person. She actually has her own little film distribution company, and she puts out films. Maybe some of them have been shown at 24th, but anyway, so she's very like film literate and has a sense, and she reads very well. So I thought also, if it had been another, it wasn't just any woman's voice, but it was her voice particularly, because I tried a few people and I was like, this isn't working, and then I thought, well, this works. So yeah, those are some of the reasons.
Well, I think I would agree that the voice is definitely helping out in such a dream atmosphere of the place, or some kind of surreal atmosphere. So, and it works really well. Yeah. So I would definitely agree that it was a good choice.
Cool. Good.
Yeah. Would you still call it a film, or have you already had discussions about about the series of photographs being presented at film festival platforms, or is it something which nobody just bothers about, and it's just natural that it's?
Yeah, I mean, it's this being the premiere, I'm not quite sure where it'll go, if anywhere, but it does have it has a quality that isn't exactly, right, as you say, moving image. But I think, I mean, film, if we think about film in the archaic chemical senses, right, a series of still images, right, and of course there's the whole history of the photoroman type film, like Chris Marker is the most famous, perhaps, La Jetée, although he uses live action cinematography in that film, which breaks the stillness. But so yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a strange experiment, and it doesn't have exactly a resolution like a lot of films do, and it's kind of almost like this log just gets chopped off at the end. Like, it could keep going on, but there's a sort of almost, it's not arbitrary, but it's a sort of like, well, this is a sort of segment of this log. Perhaps she had been writing before, or maybe she's going to keep writing, but this is the sort of segment that's relevant. So that's, I mean, there's, I suppose there's a way that it's, and also it could lend itself to, perhaps, as you said, I think earlier, like perhaps a gallery type setting where people could come in and out, which is, both a way to get people to see things, but also a way to get them not to see things, because usually in gallery spaces, people come for 3 minutes or something and sit down and walk out. So I'm glad to be able to actually present it in a way where potentially, at least, people could watch it, would perhaps be inclined to watch all the way through. I don't know if that really answered your question.
No, that's fine. I wonder whether you've been tempted to record this place and the transformation of this place in moving image. So using camera instead of photography.
Well, good question. Yeah, because that was actually how it started. Was I wanted to make a film about this area, and I had started, I was doing research and trying to make all these. I would make these contacts, and some the agent character is sort of based on a couple of people that I met while trying to get access to this place. One was sort of an architect, and the other was like a real estate developer. So I kind of merged them. The things they said to me also were kind of similar to some of the things he says to her. And so it was just really hard to get access in the way that I'd wanted to, right, to actually film inside of this place in any way that would be, that would render sufficient material to make a film, right? So it was almost like I took these sort of photographs that I was using as studies, almost like initial, scouting, and turned that into the film, because there was no way in hell I was going to be able to get, because it's a private university, they kind of shut things down. I mean, I tried writing all kinds of people, but and then there's also the problematic, potential for making a kind of, and I think maybe the film starts to veer into this, like going to a poor working class area and like, you know, filming things and taking pictures and, you know, always the problem of that, right? The ethnographic, you know, issues of that, for lack of a better word, right? The ethical dilemmas of that. So I feel like this actually created a certain kind of distance in a way that it didn't cross quite as much into that ethically fraught terrain, although I may be wrong about that. Yeah.
Okay, so let me just get to understand certain issues. Was it you trying to enter the place and meeting the agent, or was it your colleague, woman who just narrated the film? Because you mentioned this kind of macho like a performance of the real estate agent,
Right.
And probably he would react differently on you and on a woman.
Right. Right.
So,
right. So yeah, I mean, yeah. If you're asking whether,
was
well,
it you?
I mean,
Was it just you getting 100% of the images with the camera?
yeah, it was me. Yeah, it was me.
Okay.
And actually, some of the images I didn't even take. Some of the images are taken from the internet. So some of them I reprinted, and I, you know, because there's a lot of manipulation going on trying to get this person to look like, you know, and we did bring him into this space to to photograph the last part of the film. So there's that. But yeah, I mean, he was a character that I was able to like, you know, get past the front gate and sort of pose in this place as if he was a real estate agent. Right. But, you know, yeah, I mean, if he was a real person and Keisha, for instance, who's the narrator, was the one to, you know, be confronted with him, I'm sure it would be quite a different, scenario, or things would look different, perhaps.
Yeah, sure.
The images would come out differently. Yeah.
But at the very end, I think it works. He used this character, and he's driving the feature or the whole movie into something which you finally could understand in this moving image kind of perception. So, so this main character works very well. This agent, and thank you that you explained how it all evolved, because it's quite difficult, and it looks really natural that there is a woman trying to interfere this space and being kind of guided by this real estate agent, and he's coming back, appearing again and again, and he's a kind of mysterious character of this, and it works really well. You are also referring to some film works, especially I found out that you mentioned Stalker while meeting this guy with the dog and this and this policeman, I think it was, who training the dog. So have you seen, were there any other references you could find in the location during the shooting and during the shooting of the images?
Oh, you mean to cinematic works, or?
Yeah.
No, I mean that.
Teach,
right.
In New York, so I thought like it could remind you some other works.
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously La Jetée, even though it's completely different, and that's a much more, you know, profound and compact film. You know, the Stalker reference was sort of one I wanted to make. And, you know, obviously Chris Marker also makes reference to Stalker. So it's almost like I'm doubling my reference to Chris Marker in this maybe annoying way. But yeah, I mean, you know, artists, like filmmakers who have worked with still imagery, you know, there was that famous film that Godard and Jean-Pierre Gorin made, The Letter to Jane, where they're just looking at almost one image the whole time. And that, you know, that's sort of often been in my mind, is how you can get so much, you can get a certain amount of mileage out of still images, right? By giving them, changing the reading of them over time, or the interpretation of them. But yeah, I mean, you know, this sort of, this post-industrial landscape, you know, for lack of a better word, does evoke certain other films for me, I guess, in a very tangential way. I mean, like maybe like some Antonioni, Red Desert or something. I can't think of anything too obvious, but yeah, in like a tangential way, sort of. It's kind of, that's also the kind of space that interests me, like these more, the places where you can see that the system isn't working, and where the sort of things are starting to fray and crumble, or already have frayed and crumbled, but they're perhaps jutting up against the gleaming new, and slightly sinister reality that's neoliberalism is creating. So yeah. But yeah, I can't think of a lot of other like cinematic works that are, I was thinking, I'm sure there's something though, I just can't think of it off of hand.
Well, okay, I think also the audience who watched the film could just find another allusions or another links,
Right.
references, so we don't have to mention all of them you had while preparing the film. I'm also thinking of how your relation to Philadelphia, as it's really located in one of the quarters in Philadelphia, how your relation evolved from the period when you grew up there. I suppose you grew up in the city,
Right.
and how it transformed in the moment when you were, I would say, mature enough to decide to explore a certain area and make some stance, some opinion on what's going on there, and just commenting gentrification of the place and the transformation, which you probably, according to the commentaries, don't even look too positive on what's going on in the place. So
Yeah.
so how did your relation to the city, or maybe even to this quarter, how it all evolved?
Right. Yeah. I mean, so mainly it was coming back after some years, because I spent, most of my time in New York, and I was on the West Coast for a while, and it was sort of coming back here that I was able to, or that the transformations were really apparent to me that were happening, and that was both because they were accelerating, like there was more transformation than there had been during most of my youth, but also because I wasn't really cognizant or aware of those changes as I was growing up here. So coming back, it kind of hit me hard that the city was, being sort of typically overtaken by, corporate interests and private firms and stuff.
I just goodbye to my kids.
Oh yeah, you got to do it. Yeah. So yeah, I think it was more like it was coming back after a while, and seeing that this place, which used to be a pretty sleepy city in a lot of ways, had become much more like, people had started moving here, but also, of course, the obvious forces of gentrification and development were taking over, which a lot of people are very happy with. But yeah, I find it kind of terrifying, because it means poor people get displaced. It's not like we have social programs, so we don't have a welfare state, so that just means people have to go somewhere else. Poor people, usually poor people of color. So yeah.
Okay, so I think we can just go back, because I'm not sure if the same people would listen to our session, to your pedagogical or teaching practice. You are teaching at the City University in New York, so I suppose you spend a lot of time a part of this extreme situation with COVID and lockdown. So you said you're back to Philadelphia, but otherwise you spent quite a lot of time in New York and teaching there. So how exactly did you went to? Have you been studying at the school, or how was your journey to start teaching?
Well, it was I don't know. Someone sent me a job posting, and I applied, and I had taught some in grad school. I actually I taught with that guy Jean-Pierre Goran who was teaching there, who had made these films with Godard, but we didn't have a very good relationship after a time, but that's another matter. So I had some experience teaching film and film studies. So it wasn't that much of a stretch to be hired even without a proper PhD. And yeah, the courses I teach are pretty much introductory film studies courses, right? How to look at and analyze and unpack the meanings of and sort of historical contexts of films. So yeah, and I like teaching at CUNY because it's a public university. It's a kind of working class. It's one of the few working class bastions of
I see.
some kind of social provision in the city, and so it actually, you find people people are a little green sometimes, but they're very eager and interested and engaged, and I definitely feel an affinity for them, perhaps more than I might if I taught at a private university. I don't know.
Sure.
I never have, so I can't say, but
I see.
But yeah.
So what about your other work, which probably is not too familiar to our visitors and also to people who have seen Terrainwag? So could you describe if you do more work in the manner of installations, for example, for galleries, or are you balanced between different modes of expression, using 16mm film, using photography, using special video techniques?
Right.
So where's your, how are you balanced between these two?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I've generally often worked in, between sort of film, single channel and multi-channel, or installation work, and sort of more theatrical, theatrically screenable work. Increasingly I'm finding that I want to be able to create some kind of, I think I said to you earlier, narrative drive in the work, wherein it makes more and more sense to make, single channel works that are perhaps theatrically screenable, although again, maybe open to more the potential for gallery formats or even possible installation formats. Like a previous feature actually started as a multi-channel installation. So sometimes the installation will become, a feature or a film after some rethinking or thinking, how can this be put into a more linear format? So it's there's kind of a mix, but I am increasingly tending to want to make, theatrical works.
Yeah, so probably the presentation of your film Terrainwag at the 24th Film Festival seems to be the proof of what you say and this tendency. I found that there is another film which is being called in production on your website. So I hope it's the one you're working on now, which is a really weird name. A vague dread seems to silence the tongue. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm working on that one. Yeah.
So is it the current piece you're working on, and could you tell us a bit more, because it also brings attention to one area in Pennsylvania, and also this post-industrial ghosts we are encountering. So can you tell us a bit more about this project?
Yeah, so that's there was a series of killings in the late 19th century, well, more around the Civil War, started around the Civil War. And some people may know the name Molly Maguire's. There was actually a film with Sean Connery, who, died yesterday, where he played one of the Molly Maguires. So those events took place in this mining area in Pennsylvania, which is, a pretty poor now and deindustrialized and kind of frittering away kind of place. And so I'm trying to sort of narrate this history of violence, which was, enacted by secret society of Irish miners against the mine bosses, which they had imported this whole ritualized violence from Ireland, where they were being kicked out of their collective lands. So they brought it to Pennsylvania, and they would kill these miners. And I'm sort of trying to read that past through the landscape of the present, which is a quite, which is a place in which, basically this deindustrialized landscape where labor has been kind of destroyed in a lot of ways. So, and this is, one of the main reasons that Donald Trump was elected and could again be elected, right? Is this ignorance, or this casting out of the sort of the Rust Belt, right? What we call the Rust Belt. So it's trying to read that kind of violence of that past, and the suppression of labor in the past against the present day kind of negligence of these places. So hopefully it'll get it together this winter or something. I have some kind of rough edit, but it's very rough. So
yeah. Is it any easier for you as a person working, kind of editing films, this special situation with COVID, this lockdown and isolation moments, or is it more a complication for you as a filmmaker?
Right now, it's a little bit of both. I mean, it's given me some time to think about things and try to work on some stuff, but it's hard to move around. It's hard to interview people. It's hard to sort of do basic research. So, but I can work on that film that I just talked about, because most of it consists of me going to these landscapes. I did have to go to a mine at one point, a coal mine. So that was one time where I had to wear a whole like respirator and stuff. But yeah, it's been a bit of both. It's been a mixed. I mean, I'm not going to call it a blessing in any sense, but it's been a bit mixed, right? What's possible and what's not. But yeah, it's complicated, as it must be for you, I imagine.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we almost run out of time. So I'd like to thank to Edward Kihn, director of a film, Terrain Vague. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Also for introducing and explaining your film, which was being premiered as a world premiere at Opus Bonum section of Hlava Film Festival. It was nice to talk to you.
Likewise.
Wish you good luck with your future project and your teaching, which must be hard also in this time if you're teaching remotely, I would suppose.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
Yeah, it's really weird. So hopefully we can get back to normal soon and meet people and premiere films and doing Q&As offline in person. So
right.
Wish you good luck, and hopefully we'll see each other next year or some other occasion.
Great. Thanks so much, Pavel. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. Have a good evening.
Okay.
Have a good afternoon, actually.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.